Myself and Kojo Yankson were ready to do the newspapers.
We are indeed. Hello, good morning. Nice to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you too.
Yes.
Which one are you starting with?
Why don't I start with the Finder? Interesting headlines. The banner headline, of course, transit fraud to be blocked. Customs officers from destination countries to operate at Ghana ports. Adolescent healthcare in dire need of investment. That's according to Dr. Apia. Presidency pledges to act on City FM Occupy Ghana petition. This is the petition to have all completed healthcare facilities open and in use and available to the public. Absence of honesty, integrity led to NDC's defeat in 2016. That is perhaps the first time Professor Kwesi Botwe has alluded to any specifics
Publicly.
from publicly alluded to any specifics from his the report he
Officially presented to the
oversaw.
party
Yes, indeed.
leaders.
Yeah. So, well, interesting there. Absence of honesty and integrity for the party that was built on particularly those principles. It seems a pity. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, 87% of Ghanaians are against public meetings of lesbians and gays. I'll tell you a bit more about that later, but perhaps some detail. And on page 8, you'll find details of the story involving the vice president who was at the ports. The paperless ports phenomenon continues to have an impact on importation. Apparently now, you can actually get your goods cleared within a maximum of 3 days at the Ghana ports. This is good.
Is that easy?
Yes, they have reduced all the different inspection authorities to 3. So you don't have to run around the ports anymore trying to find people to sign off your goods. 3 organizations are responsible for inspecting stuff at the ports. And interestingly, national security is not one of them. But that's another conversation for another day. Of course, the other effect of the paperless system is that people are now paying truer value for their imports, which has clearly affected the cost, on the retail market of the things that we import in such large numbers. You've heard Abusi Okai, spare parts dealers say that duty has gone up when it actually has not.
While in reality it hasn't.
Yes, it has not. But they find themselves paying more at the ports now. Yes, indeed. So we're going to also start to see an effect of that when all the other taxation policies kick in. Naturally, it's going to start affecting the cost of goods and services. But Dr. Baumia was very happy with the way the paperless system is going, and he commended those who have been pushing it. But this thing about transit fraud is a big concern of his, and he believes the paperless system is one of the ways that the Ghana Ports and Harbour Authority can help stop that. Okay, adolescent healthcare in dire need of investment, and I suppose Dr. Apia is not the only one who feels that way. Details on page 5. Presidency pledges to act on City FM Occupy Ghana petition. Details on page 5 as well. Absence of honesty and integrity led to NDC's defeat in 2016. Professor Kwesi Botwe was speaking at the University of Cape Coast Auditorium. There are images here on page 2. Former finance minister, of course, still the longest serving finance minister in our history. Yeah. And, basically he said the absence of decency, honesty and integrity, which sum up what ethical politics is about, were the reasons for the defeat of the National Democratic Congress in the 2016 elections. And he was speaking at the 6th Atta Mills commemorative lecture. He's the longest serving finance minister, like I said earlier. And he was quick to add that the party is working feverishly to restore ethicality. I don't know if that's a word. Ethicality.
Can always conceptualize
in its organizational setup. Now, he's a classmate and friend of the former president, the late Atta Mills. And he spoke fondly and highly of the late president, who passed away on July 24, 2012, after a short illness. So now this is the story.
Indeed is a word.
It is it?
Yeah.
Ah.
Oh, for relating or dealing with ethics and ethical treatise.
Ethicality.
Being in accordance with accepted principles of what is right and wrong.
You learn something new every day. All right, then. Now, this is the story that I saved for last. 87% of Ghanaians are against public meetings of lesbians and gays. ASILA, the Africa Center for International Law and Accountability, did a study. Details of the study: 1,200 respondents located in 107 enumeration areas which were identified through the Ghana Statistical Service. It was a representative sample of adults in 5 regions of Ghana that were sampled: the Greater Accra, Ashanti, Northern, Volta, and Western. Sample size 1,200, and the findings are interesting. So 87% of Ghanaians say that they oppose lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender or intersexual persons holding public meetings to discuss their issues. Okay, it gets more interesting. The findings also indicate that more than 97% of Ghanaians are aware that police have a responsibility to protect every citizen against mob injustice, but 20% strongly disagree that the police have a responsibility to protect LGBTI people against mob injustice. So 1/5 of Ghanaians, by this survey,
by this estimation, don't want to see a public meeting.
No, this is worse. This is the one that says that they don't agree that the police have a responsibility to protect LGBTI citizens against mob injustice. Okay, so 1/5 of us think that LGBTIs should happily be lynched, pardon me, without or mobbed without police protection. Yes. They also it gets more fascinating. 80% of Ghanaians are uncomfortable associating themselves with LGBTIs. 30% of Christians, 40% of Muslims, and 50% of traditionalists will not receive emergency medical treatment from a nurse or medical doctor who is perceived as LGBTI, according to the findings. So basically, these Ghanaians, in some cases 40% of them, 50% of them, okay, would rather die than have their lives saved by a person who is lesbian or gay or bisexual, transsexual, transgender.
That is, if they get to know the person is.
Yes, or even if the person is perceived.
I see.
Yes, they would rather die because this emergency treatment we are talking about.
But those people aren't humans.
Well, I don't know. But basically,
it's just a survey, so
they would rather
we're just
die.
talking about the outcome.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the reality of it.
That's quite interesting.
Yes, I mean,
I thought, what if all the issues and our church-going activities aren't they supposed to make us sober and more accommodating?
Do you know, Christian Council, the Christian Council, have very often spoken against any rights, any basic human rights being afforded to people of LGBTI orientation. Okay. Now, I remember speaking to the head of the Christian Council about a year ago.
The General Secretary.
The General Secretary. Yes, and I asked him, what would Jesus do? What would Jesus do? Who did Jesus spend time with when he was here? Was it the righteous or the sinners? So even if you think that being lesbian or gay is a sin, should sinners be stripped of their rights? Then why only that sin? How about those who lie, those who commit adultery? Should they all be stoned? How about,
What about all those categories of people that you give second chances to?
Yes.
And not a second chance to.
So what exactly is it? And you see, this is the funny thing. Of all the things that people could do wrong, okay, of all the sins that people could commit, being lesbian or gay is one of the sins that does not affect anyone except the person committing it. I mean, the existence of lesbians, does it affect you, Roland? The existence of gay people in the world, does it affect me? Does it change anything about how I live my life? But somehow, people feel so strongly about their existence that they are happy to see them lynched, mobbed, and they would rather die than have their lives saved by a medical officer who belongs to this group. But that's what Asela has discovered, and I found it very fascinating.
Okay, so we have to do the daily graphic newspaper. It has on the front page, working but starving, informal jobs pay 150 Ghana cedis average. Now, could you, if you just do a cursory look at the story, almost like the daily graphic now going to look at what the livings of the ordinary people are, what they do to work, some income. And it says the payment of low wages to employees in the informal sector and other parts of the country is making it difficult for people to lead decent, productive lives. Basically, just talking about how shop assistants, kitchen assistants, etc., don't make enough. Even some part you take a look at the story, it makes reference to the Pensions Act and how we don't have the minimum wage in the informal sector being implemented in that area as we have in the formal sector. What's your view on how we can do that sort of regulation in a sector which is almost like a free-for-all?
You see, that's the difficulty with our informal sector. We're not even trying to bring them in. And you ask an important question: how do we do it? You know, how do we go about it? These people who work in the kitchens at chop bars, and you know, the head porters, and all of these people who are working, seeking to earn a living, but there is no oversight over what they do. Well, I think we need to start asking ourselves some of the important questions. What do we want to commit our resources to? Okay, because the idea of bringing these people in is simply it's linked to the services that we provide them, that they can't do without. You know, healthcare. You know, even banking. You see, if we create a system where people need some banking service, mobile money is a brilliant example. You know, and if we link to it, if we do proper study and examination of the data that we get from, now that we have this interoperability platform, we have the opportunity now to study and examine, because mobile money, you do have to register your SIN before you can participate in it. So we now have access to names of those who are using the system, okay, and we can use that as a monitoring device for taxation, not only for taxation, but also to monitor the sectors in which these people are working, okay, and it's just going to require a lot of legwork. We're going to have to actually commit resources to departments, institutions, to go out there, get the data, register people, give them an incentive to be formally recognized, so that whatever job they're doing, we can ensure that by law, whatever they are paid meets at least the minimum wage, which is now above 10 Ghana cedis. So if you're earning 150 Ghana cedis a month, you are nowhere near minimum wage.
You can't even survive.
I don't know how they're doing it.
There are many people who,
I don't know how they're doing
spend
it.
150 Ghana cedis on food.
150 Ghana cedis on food a day?
Yes, alone.
Yeah.
Only food.
Yeah. At one sitting, one restaurant?
Yeah, it depends. It depends on the category. I'm talking square meal a day.
Oh, of course, yeah.
One sitting, yes. Anyway, I guess there are too many issues we can look at in Ghana. But there's an intriguing story about two university students who have been sentenced to death by hanging. The story is on page 16. I see that I see your pen marks all over it.
Yes.
But it's an intriguing story. There was an incident that happened last year, I remember. And it says two students of the Tamale Technical University, they were sentenced to death by hanging for murdering the head pastor of the End Time Believers Bible Fellowship in Tamale last year. The incident, we're told that the man at the time, the pastor, was 64-year-old, was murdered at Kumbiyele near Tamale on the Tamale Kumbungu Road.
I know
And the facts are that around 11 a.m. on November 9, 2017, the two attacked the pastor. They stabbed him with a knife in the chest, and later they hit him with a pestle in the head, killing him instantly, and locked the body in a room. And we're told that they took away, normal gadgets, the phones, and then they even took away his Toyota Highlander 4x4, a 2014 registered car. And about 3 p.m. on November 10/17, the police in the North Region had information the vehicle had been sent to the Tamale Industrial Area for respraying, because they had commenced some investigations thereafter. And so thereafter they offered the vehicle, 2014 registered Highlander, for sale for 10,000 Ghana cedis. You can imagine.
They killed someone for that.
Yes.
Of course, I have no evidence, no psychological tests have been done, but this sounds like psychopathic behavior, where, a human being loses all empathy, all understanding of right and wrong, is not moved by the human condition, and would kill for the very least benefit. I mean, but it's surprising to see two psychopaths work together, for them to have actually, their cousins as well, related to each other, gone to this man's house, stabbed him. This is a religious leader, you see. So these are the things that are making me feel as if there might be some psychopathic tendencies here, because these are all the things that would commonly inspire some empathy or emotion in human beings. A religious leader, living in his home, and you go there and then you stab him, hit him in the head with a pestle, kill him, lock him up, take his phones and his car. And then you go and respray it, and you see this is the lack of an understanding of consequence. That's another symptom of being a psychopath. You don't actually understand consequences of your actions. So you take it to a sprayer. This is someone's car, known owner. You take it to someone to spray it so you can sell it for 10,000 Ghana cedis.
They want to disguise it and be able to sell. But, people have different motives why they do. But these are deviants in our society.
Anyway, they've been sentenced to death by hanging.
Yes.
But there hasn't been a hanging in Ghana in decades.
Yeah, so
they will probably be on death row for some time. Yeah. Unless
there's
some
an
president...
stories, though. Social media has become one of the many platforms that we can reach, not only to raise funding, but also to do many other things like travel, help in aid work, a lot of things. So there's an incident in which about 100 young Spanish volunteers, they have been evacuated from Ghana by the police and the immigration service after a disagreement with an aid project they signed for via Instagram. Now this is what happened. They saw all these nice things on Instagram. It says it was a charity. They called them Yes We Help. It was founded by a self-styled entrepreneur, I think a Spanish gentleman, Iago Zarocha, or Zarotha, or whatever it is, in Barcelona, Spain. Signed up 1,000 young people and promised them to have summer programs for them in destinations including Ghana and Sri Lanka and others in the Far East and some of the Caribbean. They were lured by nice, well-graphicked imagery on Instagram. I know you're an ardent Instagram person. You're followed by a lot of people. And they saw pictures of smiling volunteers embracing African children and promotional posts from a handful of influencers like you and others.
No,
I mean, not in this instance. Celebrity, etc. And they were made to pay 850 euros for this trip to come and volunteer. Apparently it was a scam. So the Daily Telegraph, or the Telegraph of the UK, brought all these issues to bear, and then well, in Ghana,
so these kids, and they are kids.
Yeah, they're children. They're between some 16 to 24, and 130 of them happen to have landed in Ghana.
Yeah, took them to Winneba, and then they found that there were no projects, all the projects were in disarray, nobody was managing anything. They picked leaders from amongst the volunteers and said, lead the thing, and they got frustrated. And in the end, some of them didn't have accommodation. So in the end,
paid 850
euros each.
Some of them, they save for all these escape because they want to explore.
Yes, they want to experience the world. They want to feel like they've made a difference. So they've come with the best of intentions and discovered that they've actually been scammed by some Spanish entrepreneur. And they were evacuated by the Spanish embassy.
Yeah.
Sent home after it turned out that the entire thing was just one
of those
shell game.
Reminds me of something.
Yeah.
Anyway, Midland Savings though, they've provided the house,
Yes.
the cash to the assaulted customer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what to make of this whole story, but I know at the end of the day, she's gotten something in return, but the humiliation and the way the officer acted shouldn't have happened in the first place.
Indeed.
I mean, that's what we
Indeed.
have to establish.
Yes, the officer pleaded not guilty in court. We're yet to see how that unfolds. But that would really be a closed loop of justice. Midlands, I'm hoping that in addition to this, that their regulator will apply a sanction to them, because it is a neglect of their duty of care. And their regulator, the Bank of Ghana, really ought to provide some sanction to deter others and to ensure that institutions that serve customers take more care of the people whose money they willingly collect and make profit with, and don't provide sufficient service, respect, and dignity in return. So I really hope that the Bank of Ghana also steps in with some sanction. It would be right. It would be appropriate for that to happen. Midlands really, hopefully, has learned a big lesson from this, and their customers will be better off as a result of that. Yeah.
All right, so that'll be it. Well, you're doing the Ghanaian Times?
Yeah, why not? New Ameri deal, good for Ghana, Energy Ministry assures. Their spokesperson, Nana Damwa, was speaking on JoyNews yesterday, pretty much saying the same thing. Big boost for importers as paperless port system allows clearance of goods within 24 hours. NCA case, accused granted permission to seek medical care abroad, and one of the accused, because I think there are four former officials and one businessman accused, but Nana Owusu is one of the former government officials, I believe he's a board member, and he has been granted leave to travel for medical care, so they've given him his passport to do that and return, hopefully. Also, on page 17, that's where you get details of Nana Damwa's strong defense of the Ameri deal, the new deal. We should stop calling it an Ameri deal, because Ameri is bowing out.
Now it's the Mytilenius deal.
That's right.
Mytilenius.
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 Well, it's a Greek name, so
yes.
I'll need some help learning how to pronounce it. But basically, Mr. Damwa makes the point that if you look at the original Ameri deal very well, and I'm quoting him here, government said it will assume 9 cents per kilowatts per hour of the cost, or the VRA and ECG were supposed to pay 6 cents per kilowatts per hour, but government has never paid that 9 cents. So in actual fact, the country is behind on payments by about $92 million. Okay, that he claimed puts Ghana at risk, as the Ameri plant could have been shut down at any time under the original arrangement.
Okay, so under the original arrangement, we couldn't pay.
Yes.
So because we owe, and we have to pay all that in a shorter period, that's when we went in for a longer period.
That is his explanation. Yes. So basically, because government failed.
But you know, the new deal will be paying the Mytilenius 75 million every year till the next 15 years.
Yes. Yeah. We couldn't pay 91. Yes, we couldn't pay 91. So we agreed to pay 75
for 15
every year for 15 years, because we couldn't pay 91. Yes, that's the logic.
If we pay the rest for the next 2.5 years, the plant will be ours.
Yes, if we had paid. If we had paid.
And then continued with those obligations for the next...
for 2.5 years, it would have become ours. But he also says that after the 2.5 years, we would still have had to pay some people to manage it.
Well, we can give it to the VRA to manage. Aren't we those who say we are competent?
You see, that is what your government expects you to accept. That is the story they expect you to accept.
No, but we've been...
Okay? They expect you to believe that we would go into a contract with a company and say that we want you to come and build and operate equipment for us. At the end of that period, we would like to own the equipment. But at the end of that period, when we own the equipment, we won't know how to use it. So we will pay others to come and operate it. This is what
So there will not have
Mr.
been
Damwa,
anything
yes.
then technological transfer within the period.
This is what Mr. Damwa is saying was the plan of our government. Our government was not planning to figure out how to operate this equipment. So we, after the 2.5 years, we were going to pay others to operate it. So really, we have to take that cost and compare it to the cost of paying 75 million to somebody to own it for 15 years. And then after that, we become owners. So after the 15 years, will we then pay others to come and operate the 15-year-old obsolete equipment?
Under Mary, we're supposed to pay, as per kilowatt hour, 14 cents on whatever is generated for 5 years. And that's the period. After that, it reverts to 11.5. This one, we have spread 11.7 over a period of 15
years. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah, and it's better for us according to the Ministry of Energy.
If you do the sums, it doesn't add up
at all. But here's one point he made. I think
that is only the Energy Ministry that thinks that it adds up.
Yeah, here is one point he did make, which, well, I'll let you decide what you think about it. But what he said was, if this is a bad deal, what does it mean to the average Ghanaian? What does the average Ghanaian care about? He wants electricity and he wants it cheap. He wants it regular as well.
But
their government, this is what he says, their government has provided more regular and cheaper electricity than the NDC government, who are claiming that their Ameri deal was cheaper than this new one. Okay? So, according to Mr. Damwa, the only thing that Ghanaians care about, NPP is giving it to them better than the NDC when it comes to power. But I think the one thing he doesn't factor in is the fact that the 15 years are now about to begin. So the impact that will have on the cost of electricity is yet to be experienced. But if you are making a deal now to pay someone for 15 years for something that you could have finished paying for in 2.5 years, no matter what other costs you insist you would have incurred after the 2.5 years, no matter what. Because if you would incur them after 2.5 years, then of course you'll incur them after 15 years too. So why is it better to go for 15 years than 2.5? In any case, if even they are providing us with cheaper power, does that mean they should not be accountable for every deal they make? Is that what it means? We shouldn't ask questions because power is cheaper?
Anyway, so we have the Daily Guide. The Daily Guide has an interesting story. You know, there's been this ongoing issue. We're told that Joyce Bawa Muktari, an aide to the former President John Dramani Mahama, saying that he hasn't been paid. He and the accounted staff, the staff that he presented to the Emolument Commission are supposed to pay him, haven't been paid since he left office. And we're told that it appears... but this is what the Daily Graphic says, appears to be engaging in, it says Bawa Mutari appears to be engaging in damage control antics by claiming that some 568,000 paid into the bank account of John Mahama is not his monthly salary but end of service benefit, otherwise known as ex gratia.
How much?
568,000.
Ex gratia.
Yeah, we're told. But... well, the story is out there. It's still on the front page of the Daily Guide. And Mr. Arthur's wife, Anga...
Are we not going to be brave and scrap this ex gratia business? As a nation, are we not going to make that brave move? That if you want to go into politics, you must understand that you are coming into public service. If you own a business and you are leaving it to come and serve in a political position, it is a risk you are taking. And the people of Ghana should not come and mitigate that risk for you. If you can't take the risk, don't come into public service. Let those who are willing to come and serve without the expectation of some massive payout at the end of it, let them come. maybe the nation will benefit more from them. Isn't it time perhaps we took that bold step? Because I'm tired of, you see, I don't know how it makes you feel, but personally, when I hear about these large amounts of money being gathered to be paid to people who no longer serve us. Why? Because they once did. I don't get it. How much did we get from them, you know, in terms of what they did for us? On which basis we can afford to pay them such large amounts of money, especially those who intend to come back, like John Mahama intends to come back. Like people in Parliament go and come and every 4 years collect massive amounts and then come back and sit there, contributing just as little as they used to.
MPs, yeah.
When are we going to take that bold move and say, you know what, come into public office at your own financial risk? Come and do it because you want to serve, you want to sacrifice, not because we, the people, the poor people that need leaders, are going to sacrifice for you. No. Who is serving whom?
Anyway, so we have a number of issues also on the international front. So high turnout in first post-Mugabe poll. If you go to the Africa page of the BBC, you get to find the pictures out there, and also the story about the counting that is ongoing following the elections in Zimbabwe. They're electing the president, and then also members of their parliament and some local councillors. So you can find on the BBC, the Africa page, what the president looked like, how he looked like when he was voting, etc. But we know that there's a coalition behind the opposition MDC, who apparently have the young voter population behind them in this election.
Biggest turnout ever.
Yeah, well, it was around 70%.
I think a lot of
53%.
A lot of young voters are experiencing what they might consider to be a free and fair election for the first time. You know, where they don't have that overhang of the Mugabe effect, where it would appear no matter what happens at the ballot box, the outcome is pretty much known. This time around,
we hope that the elections will be free and fair. That's
yes,
the most.
yes,
We're told that it was fairly okay within the period, and then we hope that both sides will accept the results.
Yeah.
When the outcomes are mentioned, that's the most important.
A school teacher was speaking on CNN about it, and said, to be honest, she's so excited about the new choices available. She didn't even think for a minute about Robert Mugabe.
That they will come. Yeah. Now they have all that day. But remember, we'll be taking you to the Omanya Hall, the Labadi Beach Hotel. It's where we have the Stanbic Business, the Graphic Business, Stanbic Business Breakfast Meeting. And of course, the media partner is Joy Business. And Mama Viusobajo will be speaking to Nyama Ishen Fameye, the General Manager, Group Operations at Kena Pharma Limited. Also, that event, we're going to have in the main event, Dr. Tony Otinjesi, former AGI president, but also the CEO for Tropical Cables and Conductor Limited, and then Yao Safuma for the senior minister, who also will be there as well. So please make sure you make a date with us. So we'll bring you the latest sports stories as well. But Kujo, you want to look at one or two before we go?
Sure, if we have a minute. The Daily Dispatch says, comments on free SHS challenges. Finance Minister is not government. The President is. That's according to Kweku Bako. Well, that's what the story attributes to Kweku Bako. And details are inside, on the back page, actually. Very interesting. Kweku Bako is a strong proponent of free SHS, but admits parents were not made to anticipate the challenges. And he goes on, editor-in-chief of New Crusading newspaper says, had parents been made aware of funding and logistical challenges weighing down the effective implementation of the policy, the controversy that has been generated by the rollout of the program would not have cropped up. He was speaking, of course, on News File. He said, despite the current challenges, he still backs government on the education policy that aims at removing the financial barriers to access secondary school. I'm not seeing this quote here about the finance minister, but That was the headline of the story. Another headline on the back page: an NPP minister plotting to disgrace Boakye Jako over new Ameri deal. And that's what Kennedy Agyapong is saying. And it is worrisome how often Kennedy Agyapong has been close enough to the truth to make people uncomfortable. I wonder whether he is equally close on this matter.
I think he knows what he says.
But I can tell you one thing that my sources are telling me about the Ameri. We keep calling it the Ameri deal, right?
The
Mighty deal. Cabinet approved a certain narrative that was presented to them by the Energy Ministry. Between the approval of that narrative and the matter getting to Parliament, certain opinions changed and remain changed as we speak. I can tell you that much. Do you feel informed?
I feel informed. I have things on my own as well that I got to learn over the last 12 hours. So,
yes.
Quite interesting. But we have to move on. Sometimes you just have to keep some things to yourself. That's the way the job goes. But Benedict Owusu will be here with the latest sports stories. We'll bring you all the news about who is being transferred from which club and who is ready for the new season coming up, not only in England but the rest of Europe as well. Please stay on. Benedict Owusu, latest sports stories.